Hello there, people of the internet. This is going to be a fun little discussion talking about why we don't care what our 308 or 30-06 twist rate is. Now, there are going to be some exceptions to that room or to that rule. If you're a hand loader or you are somebody who pays particularly close attention to twist rates in your rifle, then of course you're the exception. Go ahead and call me wrong if you want to. But by a huge, huge margin for the civilian population, we don't care what the twist rate of our 308 or 30-06 is. And way, way, way more often than not, they're going to be like a 1 in 10 twist. Either that or a 1 in 9.5 twist if we're talking about like a European-made rifle like your 303 British Enfields and your Mosin Nagant rifles and your Swiss straight pull rifles and whatnot. Those are I think they're a 1 in 9.5 twist or 1 in 9.67 inch twist or whatever it is. But basically, they're all sitting around that 1 in 10 twist. And the reason why we don't really care about that is because that 1 in 10 twist will stabilize basically all of the projectiles that we would ever load into a 308 cartridge, with some exceptions, or a 30-06 cartridge with some exceptions, or a 303 British, or a 54 rimmed, or a 7.5 Swiss, or insert your choice of 7.62 diameter bullet here. It doesn't necessarily have to be exactly 308 diameter. If we bump that up to a 312 diameter bullet, the differences are so minimal that's not going to matter. But whenever we are loading rounds for these particular cartridges, we're loading anywhere from a 100 grain bullet typically to about a 220 grain bullet. Sometimes we'll see heavier bullets, like I have some 150 grain 30-06, but the 1 in 10 twist will stabilize all of those. And from a general bullet perspective, that is a huge, huge realm of bullets that you can use for that cartridge. And it's kind of like the equivalence of if we all decided to standardize on the 1 in 8 twist AR barrel. Like with the 1 in 8 twist, you'd be able to stabilize basically everything. And the reason why we're not standardized on the 1 in 8 twist AR barrel is because the U.S. Army had a 1 in 14 twist, then a 1 in 12 twist, then they went to a 1 in 7 twist, and then civilians started loading different projectiles for the things, and they were like, all right, the 1 in 7 twist doesn't do great for this, but the 1 in 12 twist is too slow for this, so let's go ahead and compromise with a 1 in 8 or a 1 in 9 twist barrel. Or I think the 1 in 9 twist came first, and then they were like, okay, well, now we have some issues with this, so let's go to the 1 in 8 twist. And just from the commercial market, with all of the things that we want to do with the AR platform, like that's where the argument of twist rates came in terms of like the 223 5.56 cartridge. And we don't get that whenever it comes to the 308/30-06. And the reason why we don't get that is, well, have you guys ever thought about how the 1 in 10 twist AR barrel is a pretty gosh darn slow twist, and it stabilizes lightweight bullets pretty gosh darn well? With the 1 in 10 twist, you can probably stabilize up to, say, 65, maybe 69 grain bullets. But then as you get heavier than that, they destabilize and they keyhole, and you're not going to get any accuracy. However, that being said, the 1 in 10 twist from a 308 barrel can stabilize all the way up to like 250 grain bullets. Maybe 240 grain. I'm not sure. I'll have to double check on that. But the point is, it's ridiculously heavier than the 223 bullet. And a lot of that has to do with the length of the bullet. 220 grains in a 308 barrel is going to be a lot shorter than, say, 220 grains in a 223 barrel. I know that once you start looking at, say, 85 grain bullets for your 223, you're looking at some really long bullets. Like, I get that they're not that heavy, but they're really long, and the length of the bullet definitely directly dictates to whether or not the twist rate would be able to stabilize it. So, just because of the practicality with the just vast array of different bullet weights that we would see in a .22 caliber rifle, we have far less of a need for diversity with the acceptable ranges of what a 1 in 10 twist barrel would stabilize with a 308 barrel. Like with a 308, we have like 150 grains that we can work with because we're stabilizing anywhere from a 100 grain to a 250 grain bullet. And like a 100 grain is a really, really light 308 bullet, and a 250 grain bullet is a really, really heavy 308 bullet. And if you want to get any lighter or heavier than that, then you up the caliber versus lengthening the bullet anymore, which could potentially cause issues depending on what cartridge it is that you're shooting and whatnot, but that's a topic for another time. But the point is, you can do basically anything in the world with that variety of bullets, 100 grain to 250 grain. Like, you should be able to handle basically everything. But then if you have, say, an M16 with a 1 in 12 twist and you stabilize 55 grain bullets, but you can't really go any heavier than that, then now you see a pretty crippling, severe limitation to your capabilities with your platforming. You're like, oh, I want to stabilize some 85 grain bullets. Let me go out and get myself maybe a 1 in 7 twist, like what I have in this Radical AR right here. It's like, here's a 1 in 7 twist, and it'll stabilize those heavier bullets just fine. I know that people shove 77 grain bullets through that pretty regularly. Or maybe you're like, I want a good middleman to where I can stabilize, I don't know, maybe I want to stabilize 55 and 62 grain bullets, like both of those, which a 1 in 12 twist cannot do. But I want them to be unstable enough to where whenever they smack into a target, they're going to tumble basically upon impact, and we won't have the issue with them drilling into the target 5, 6, 7 inches before they finally start tumbling and breaking apart. So I'm going to go out and get myself a 1 in 9 twist barrel, or maybe something a little bit more extreme with a 1 in 10 twist barrel, which, yes, it will stabilize 62 grain bullets. I proved that on this YouTube channel. You can go watch those videos right now of me shooting 62 grain bullets through my Ruger Mini 14 right there with a 1 in 12 twist or a 1 in 10 twist barrel. It is a 1982 or 83 production, and they were made with 1 in 10 twists back then. And sure enough, that does stabilize green tip rounds, which are 62 grains, and it does stabilize lead core rounds, which are 62 grains. So I digress on that one. But the point is, depending on what bullet weight you want to use in your 22 caliber rifle, in this particular case 223, depending on what you're wanting to do with it, is going to dictate what twist rate you want. Like, if you are shooting out to really long ranges, maybe that heavier bullet might do you a little better than, say, a 40 grain bullet, which, you know, a 40 grain bullet from a 1 in 12 twist, that's a phenomenal, accurate, well-capable round. But a 40 grain bullet through, say, a 1 in 7 twist, I'm not sure if that would even stabilize. It might. I have literally no idea. But the point is, with something like the 223, we have all these different bullet types and bullet selections that we're trying to pick to try and get the most effectiveness out of the cartridge as possible, because it's not a very effective or efficient round simply because of all the different options that we have available to us. Like 55 grain from a 20-inch barrel with a 1 in 12 twist, phenomenally effective. That's a 5.56. But also M855 green tip from a 1 in 7 twist 14.5-inch barrel. That is very, very not effective. That bullet is way too stabilized in that 1 in 7 twist. It's going at way too low of a velocity. It's just going to ice pick through the target for a normal-sized man target. I'm sure that if you go out and you shoot, I don't know, a hog center mass and it goes through that hog, like, you're probably going to have some tumbling upon or some tumbling through something like that. But through a man-sized target, you get like 5, 6, 7, 8 inches of penetration before you see any tumbling, and most targets, that's just going to pass right through. But these different kinds of bullets that we have for these different twist rates all depend on the job it is that you're looking to do, and we have so many options, and that's why everyone's always arguing about the AR twist rate and what is the best. Like, is the 1 in 8 best, the 1 in 9 best, the 1 in 10, 1 in 12, 1 in whatever, and then they'll go out and they'll just run 55 and 62 grain pills through it, and your big 3 will stabilize that, 1 in 7, 1 in 8, 1 in 9. It doesn't really matter with those. So if you are going to be arguing twist rate, I guess it depends on what bullet weight you're using, but also like what barrel length you're using. Like, I would not use a 1 in 12 twist if you have a 1 in 10 inch barrel. I'm not sure how well your 55 grain bullets would stabilize with that. You might get better effectiveness from... Nah, typically if you're using a shorter barrel just with the cartridge, it gets its effectiveness from velocity, so you're going to want to use heavier bullets, like say 77 grain from that short 10-inch, and then you would want a 1 in 7. So I guess that right there really would, like the barrel length really would dictate the twist rate. There's just so much that goes into the argument of what would go on with that 223 caliber twist rate and what would be the most effective for what it is that you in particular are trying to do. And we don't have to worry about that with, say, a 30-06 rifle. They're just like, all right, 1 in 10 twist, that'll stabilize basically everything that anyone would ever need to stabilize whenever it comes to these bullet weights, unless they're doing something with some sort of specialty round, in which case they might have to change something up. But like 99% of the population isn't going to be doing anything special with any specialty rounds, so that should be fine. And we don't get that with the 223 cartridge rifles. Like, there's just so much discrepancy with those guns. It's kind of like I said before, it's kind of like if you were to stabilize the platform on like a 1 in 8 twist barrel, because the 1 in 8 twist will stabilize pretty much everything across the board. But then at the same time, just because of the popularity of military cartridges in the United States, the 55 and the 62 grain projectiles have become the most predominant. And so the most effect that you're going to get from those particular bullet weights, like the 1 in 12 twist from the 1 in 12 twist with a 55 grain bullet from an M16 barrel, stupidly effective against soft targets. Military Arms channel with his watermelon video showed that. But then if you have if you want to run both 55 and 62 grain projectiles, maybe that 1 in 10 twist would serve you better. Anyway, folks, I think I've rambled on long enough with this particular one. Hopefully you guys understand what it is that I'm trying to say here. There's just too much variation with the 223 5.56 for us to really standardize on one particular twist rate. And we don't get that with 308 rifles. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below has a link to all sorts of stuff. I know I keep pointing at the M1 Garand saying 308 rifle. I get that it's a 30-06. It's a 308 diameter bullet, all right? Glad we got that settled. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Since I've done this. Bonnie and Clyde be damned. The poor man's Garand. Shame that bolt action shotguns aren't more mainstream.